Welcome back to the show. My name is Justin Anchetta from SF Garnish and Soul Graffiti Studios located in the Bay Area. And I'm here for an installment from our 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. West Coast Wednesdays. Every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're talking about digital audio workstations, Ableton, Logic, Pro Tools, and doing mixing and mastering and sound design in the process. Today, we're going to get into some specifics in Ableton. We have a mix up here that has what I did was I created a track. Actually, this was created, I believe, during a previous show in 2021. But what we're going to do is bring in instruments and record them at a higher quality, and also compare the difference between the MIDI instruments versus the real instruments, how much CPU usage they're using, and why we might want to utilize the audio interface sound versus our digital audio workstation playback sound. Okay, so a couple things that we should check out is that up here in the upper right hand area, this is hovering around 19%. Just not even playing anything at all. That's because I already have some pretty extensive plugins already on this track. I think I have a mastering chain down here, an Ozone mastering chain is doing some things. And yeah, so it's taking some CPU usage just even being open. So the way that we can track on this and not have it just go too high is when we track. Let's go ahead and put in a track right here. I'm going to go Command T, which is a shortcut. It drops it in right below. And let's try and do an oud. Rename oud track. You guys aren't seeing that entirely because my head is there. Let's move that out of the way. So let's go ahead and make sure that this is in the appropriate track. So what I have here is I will snap on the track that I want to use. And if I go in auto mode, we start hearing that track when it's in record. And that's how much delay there is right now with that track. So what I want to do is turn that off, and we can mess around by going into our preferences and changing our sample rate, buffer size, right? But if you have a delay and you're already at 128 samples, that means that you have some plugins that are using up some CPU usage, and this is your way around it. You can go in off mode here. And what we want to do, as a matter of fact, you guys are already hearing this. We want to bring in this microphone so that we can hear it on its own, okay? So that's already being sent out to you guys. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you the audio interface settings that I have personally, okay? So I'm using the X32 rack. What it looks like, this is the iPad that's controlling it, and I have it routed where mixer or out 5 is going to you guys. So if I drop these out or mute these, right, this is going to get softer and louder per se. Okay, and then the mains is what I'm able to listen to, and then when we play the track, it's going to come through our AUGs over here. So everything's set up with their own volumes. Okay. And that's pretty important because if we're not using, when we're over here and we're in off mode right there on the oud, we're not going to hear the oud unless we have this fader unmuted and up. Okay. So that's what we're going to get into today a little bit. I also should give you guys a heads up. Audio interfaces really matter. I'm going to give you a quick look under the hood here. This is the X32 rack. I love this thing, the X32 rack or the X Air 18. We use these devices. It's so portable. You can bring it to your shows. You probably don't need this if you have a small band or a DJing. You could use a smaller one, a Focusrite or something like that. But it has some great preamps in it, and it, like I said, it's controlled wirelessly using an iPad. You do need a network, your own network to do that. So a couple little things you should figure out, but definitely helpful for doing live sound at shows or in the studio. Let's go ahead and listen to this bass line right here. What we want to do is do the same thing on the oud. So let's solo that. Okay, so that is the part that we're going to bring onto a different instrument. And the two things that I'm going to do today is play it on the oud and then also do an electronic version of that by bringing it into a MIDI device, okay? And the reason for that is that we want to be able to have it really just hit even more than that stand-up bass sound and get like more of a hip-hop low sub frequency once the beat comes in. All right, so part of this is the miking. Let's see if you guys can see this mic. Not quite yet. I'm gonna go ahead and move this down briefly. As I do that, let's go ahead and let's listen to this track so you guys can take a peek into what's going on. All right. And what I also like to do is put a little bit of effects onto the channel when I'm recording. And what we can also do, I'll take this off when I'm talking. What we can also do is do a loop, okay? So we'll just take the length of that whole loop we see in the bass, and we're going to go into record mode. Now, one way to check your record mode is to make sure that that is engaged, only one channel is engaged, okay? So I did a command click to test that, and it really depends on your settings of what's going on with that. Okay, let's go ahead and record this. All right. So turn off all of the effects again. My mic was dropping a little bit there. So this is the SMB7 that I'm speaking through. And It actually is a great mic for anything like voice or oud, but I have another mic right here on the side that has a little bit more of a spectrum. I would say it's just less compressed, has probably more of the top end qualities to get more of the highs and lows. And let's go ahead and listen to that. So I just did a loop because this is utilizing the new feature in 11. You can right click. Let's go ahead and move my head again. You can right click on the track right here and say show take lanes. Okay, and this is where we can go through and pick out our take lanes. Okay, zooming in definitely helps out. And I thought I was going to be festive during the winter and wear this hat, but it is just too hot. Woo. All right, there we go. Okay, and as a matter of fact, I can actually mute that larger channel now. So it's just a little bit cleaner. This is that side mic over here. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this a little bit. So you just highlight it and I think it's played a little bit differently, huh? Boom, 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 boom. So I noticed this note right here, I went up and you know what? Let's go ahead and just do a little test here. So Command Tab can bring up this other side area and we're just going to go pitch it down. And that one, we're going to Command E, cut and down, one up. Boom, 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 boom. So this is a cool thing that you can actually do is you can pitch it later, right? It's obviously, if we played it correctly right away, that might be the best option, but this is one way that we can. Let's go ahead and Control Z those. And this is. And let's go. Let's make sure these pitches are correct. All right, so I was able to track this and not worry about any delay in my headphones because I was in off mode. My monitor off mode is really the key thing that I was trying to show today. So off versus auto. How much echo can we have? Taking that off really helps out. Now, this is something in Ableton that is there for good reason, right? Is that you have the option to utilize auto mode if you're using some effects that you want to hear in your playback or you have a live show. Now, this is the important thing around a live show is you don't want to have too many plugins on Ableton for the live show. You really want to simplify your live show. so that it can be smooth without any delays. Your CPU usage should be way lower in just standby mode. Always be checking out your CPU usage, right? Going in, pressing tab, and look at my master chain right here is just taking up tons of CPU. If you want to just go ahead and limit that, let's go ahead and take these off. Now, that also means that you're not going to hear these instruments at the end. But look at that. Our CPU usage just went way down. All that yellow is gone. And where are we at? We're hovering at 4% now. Okay. So another test is, can we hear that? Let's go ahead and see how it is in delays. Delay time is a lot better, but still there. Okay. And there's always a little bit of a millisecond, I say 10 to 15 millisecond delay, utilizing Ableton still. It's always a work in progress. It is possible to play with now, though. Back in, I think, 2005, 2007, when I first got into Ableton, it really wasn't possible at that point. I believe 2011 through 13 was when it started changing over, and the effects of Ableton started to be more realistic to utilize for a live show or in a tracking session. Dynamic. Obviously, in this scenario, we have our effects and a lot of channels already utilized here. So when we start playing back, let's go back to press tab, right? Notice how our CPU is used up on all of these channels. If you don't see this, you can press this C function to increase that right there. Let's go ahead and just zoom into that for a second so you guys can really see that. The C function, okay? And also notice how when I play this, look at these tracks, right? These are all taking up CPU usage. It's not hitting as much as the master was, right? And then you can clean that up, right? Just by taking that away. So, all right, so that is the part that we did on the oud. And we have a general idea of a track here. Let's go ahead and just take out our take lanes there and clean it up. And what do we have over here? I just want to see how this is looking. Hip hop part. We have a deep side chain going on here. And right here is going to be where I add in a specific part. Now I'm going to duplicate this, Command D, and we're not going to utilize any of this track here. And then we are going to go in and go into record mode. We have the sound we want. The side chaining we're going to take off. Okay, we don't need the side chaining. We're just going to have our basic compression on. And let's see how this is. Now this scale is a little bit different than I want. So I'm going to go in and do a melodic minor scale. And this is the cool thing about the push. Let's go ahead and just utilize this function here where you can see what I'm doing. All right, so I am now on the push 2 and I'm in scale mode. I just clicked right over here on scale on the instrument. And okay, that note right there, it's kind of, I wanted that to go to the da 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 da. So it's the wrong scale. We're doing a minor scale here. I'm just going to go and shift over to a harmonic minor. right, I believe those are the notes we're utilizing in that. Excuse me. In that part. Now, instead of me having to play this with the push, I can actually take either this instrument here, the oud, or the bass, and make it a MIDI track. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut that, and I'm going to say join, okay, Command J. What that does is it takes out and trims up anything around the sides. Okay, so we don't want it to like loop in weird ways or give me more of the track than I really want. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and click on not freeze track, convert to a melody track, harmony, convert to harmony to new MIDI track. Okay, it's not drums. Let's do melody, okay? So let's go ahead and zoom into this. These are your options. And I'll do melody, so it's really focusing on the pitch as best it can. And this just shows the accuracy, really, of what's going on. Okay, and there it just creates a new MIDI track. Now, what that MIDI instrument is just pretty much an operator in a very generic way. Let's go ahead and just listen to that for a second by soloing that. Okay, so pretty generic. Now I'm going to take that and just bring it over to the hip hop bass, and we're going to change it to the right octave now. And this is where we really want to, let's quantize this. Just going to cut that and bring it more precise. Bum, bum, bum. Let's go ahead and listen to this again. Bass. Dun, 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 dun. And what actually came out here was not the right notes. So we're going to go ahead. Dun, 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 dun. We'll change those. And that note, I'll just zero out. And this is actually one that was the most precise here. I'll just duplicate this, Command D, and then bring that right over to this area and take out the notes I don't want. Now this is also, what octave do we want this in? I'm going to go Command A, select all of them, Shift button, and then the down arrow on my keyboard, and it brings it down an octave, so you don't have to go all 12 steps yourself. So some of these kind of cut in the middle don't really sound that good. So we'll just... Let's go ahead and listen to that with everything. bum, bum, and this note here, bum, bum. I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate that and drop it down one with the arrow key. Bum, bum, each time. Okay. And unsoloing. All right, completely changes there. We really need to build up to that. And obviously this whole spot needs to grow a little bit. So we've done a recording of an instrument, right? The oud here, and how to minimize CPU usage, right? By not using auto mode, but off mode in record. And then also we did another way of like, if we have any delay with our instrument going on, we had some delay with our finger, and we were just able to grab it from the melody right here and then customize it, right? Just to kind of make sure that those notes are more set up. So those are two different ways, audio recording and MIDI recording, to, if you have any latencies, if you already have some external plugins like Waves, Sound Toys, etc., taking some CPU usage. And we also learned that we can also turn them off, right? And that also can help with those delays and issues. You can also freeze tracks that you're not working on. I often do that in session view, and I'll just go down like the bass track right here, right click, and I'll freeze the track. So instead of it taking that CPU usage there, we then would right click and freeze, and it wouldn't take any in those moments. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, so I'll flatten a few of these tracks. Freeze tracks. So we can't freeze the effects track because it is in monitor switch. So that, let's take that one off and freeze tracks. So we'll just do this to kind of see if we could even get below that 4% hovering. And then once we start playing the song, can it stay at that lower percentage of CPU usage? The reason why you want to pay attention to this is that your recordings and latency and delays, you won't have issues with that in your studio or at your live show if you understand what functionalities are built within your digital audio workstation of Ableton, which is what we're using today. If you don't already know about our programs are worldwide. There's 8 locations worldwide. We are the SF branch. There's a LA branch, Nashville, Tennessee, New York, London, some in Europe, and even Tokyo. So check that out. There's even one in Miami. I'm missing a few, but Germany, last one. Anyway, if you're a part of our academy, you can go to any location and sit in on classes for free and be able to take classes while you're vacationing or at on a work trip. So I don't know what other school allows you to do that. We have our boutique studios worldwide and online classes as well with our community. It's growing quite rapidly right now, especially with our Beer and Beats happening every Tuesday from 6 to 9 p.m. It's a free meetup. Go to meetups.com and look for Beer and Beats in the Bay Area, and SF Garnish and Soul Graffiti will pop up. So try and join that if you can. There's new offerings at all locations. Thank you to the Garnish Music Network for inviting us out once again. And we look forward to working with you in the near future. If the Academy, the 360-hour program, is not it's too much of a commitment for you, we have our producer program of 120 hours and our short courses, which is 18 to 36 hours. And it could be done literally in a 1-week period, 5 or 6 days. Most often it's done in about 6 to 12 weeks in like 3 to 4 hour little stints. So there you have it. we now have some frozen tracks. Let's go ahead and listen back and see where we're at. So we're still hovering at that 5% without anything playing. And we're at about 20%. And I'm noticing that this effects all chain, we're not using this as a matter of fact. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this off. This is actually, yeah, so it's better, right? I just took that off. So it's still hovering around 23. Let's go ahead and, what is this? I was gonna put this drum in today, but it already is in here. The rattle in it. It's called the ocean drum. So the thing that I want to do today is just go ahead and just show you guys the difference of a lot of these being frozen, okay? Because we were at that mark of about 5 or 20%, and I want to see if I can get lower than that just by freezing these tracks for you guys. And it takes some time to freeze the arrangement. To unfreeze, it's automatic. You just go to that track and unfreeze it if you ever want to work on it again. Volume still work on it. You can still do some automations, but changing the effects within the parameters doesn't work unless you unfreeze. So these are just some functionalities that maybe at a live show, you have a bunch of frozen tracks, not taking any CPU usage, just playing back clean, and then some that you actually are DJing and changing your highs and lows, right? So really that preparation of knowing what you want to do for your live show, what you want to do in the studio as well is important. I have some templates that I've created that are specifically for staying creative in the studio and being able to just get out the instrument that I want. Not only are the instruments on the wall so I can grab them quickly, but similarly on my DAW, it's set up that way. My record channels are already tracked to the right location where my microphone is, right? So I use channel 11, 12 for this mic and this mic, and then I can easily go to specific areas of my session that I have up and record on those channels. Some are called vocals, guitar, melodies. Sometimes they get a little wish-washy, right? Because I used this microphone to do the drum and it said vocal 1. So I just had to change the name of that to stay organized. My naming process, I'll go through this as it's still loading, is that anything that is just a basic channel, I will do lowercase, right? You can do the first one uppercase and then lowercase, but anything that is a group, I'm going to do all uppercase. And the reason for that is that you really want to know things are a group. If you have specific effects or volume changes on a group, it's going to change everything inside that group. And you really want to know that that's happening. I often have my groups labeled drums all with the word all after it, all capitals, or melodies all, guitars all, vocals all. When we kind of tighten up our thing here and bring these in, right? Sometimes that all disappears, but all the capitals are still there. So once I see all those capitals, I know that that's my group, and I can expand that out and then individually change the different things in there. Okay, so here we are. Things are muted. It's hovering at about 5% now that everything's muted. Let's go ahead and play it. Look at that. So if we went from like 21, now we're at like 16, 17, 18. Just took it down by a little bit. I'm still curious what channel is taking the CPU. It looks like this effects channel just being in that mode really just changes a lot, right? The in mode, even when we have these effects off. Okay. And one reason why is that we do have automations over here. I thought that turning this off would just mute it all, but I think that is something that actually is still taking CPU usage. Even the all channel right here has something going on. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do here, since we've gone through some of the basics that I wanted to today, I'll just do a little extra tidbit for you guys, which we're going to go in and do some risers. I'm just going to go ahead and let's put in 4 channels. Okay, I didn't name them yet because I want to see if I have any risers here. I'll say search all. Doesn't look like any riser is actually named that. Oh, riser, there we go. Let's go ahead and listen to some of these. And something that I noticed is that you guys aren't hearing this because, let's go ahead and make sure you guys can see this too. So in the bottom area right here, your cue out, very important part of your live show is that you don't want the audience to hear sometimes, so you have your cue out only for yourself and the audience doesn't hear it. Obviously you guys are the audience today. I'm going to change it just to my 1-2 main out so you guys can hear it. And this is something that I've set up within my audio interface. So you want to make sure your audio interface has more than 2 outs, right? If you want to have kind of a DJ effect of sampling things before then putting it out there. That's something that I always check with these smaller audio interfaces. Some of them don't have more than 2 outs, and it's not really helpful for what I need. I want my click separate from my mains. All right, so that one right there is going to definitely have a nice pickup. So I'm going to go press tab, get back in here, and I want these to kind of build up and then cut out just before the break right here. So, and then these might be kind of loud. I'll drop this volume down right away quite a bit. And let's go ahead and... I like some of these having those tails at the end. Notice how this hit right here is what really matters, right? When that comes to the close. So we can make that happen right where we want it to. You can go Command 4 and move that to the exact location you want. All right. So here we are. Every time that I drop it in, because I haven't named it yet, it's telling me the name right away. Okay. And I like how it keeps the number up front. Interesting. Has so much space right there. All right. Kind of loud on those risers, like I said. So all these risers, you can then collect them all and group them, Command G, and you can just name that now. Risers, all, utilizing that same technique of all capitals. So you can really organize them to be nice and clean right up here. All right, the next thing, I think that we could really make this more unique by having more risers and also putting some effects on these risers. right, so this is that part. I'm going to loop this area, Command L, take this whole spot, Command E, cutting it, and I'm going to keep in all the parts that I want by going Command and clicking on that part. Okay, so I wanted that bass line to ring through. I want the melodies to ring through, and everything else I'm going to zero out. And now let's go ahead and listen to that. All right, so now going into this melody area, I'm really feeling like there needs to be more of like some delay throwed type effects in here. Now, here's one more thing I wanted to share is that having effects on your audio interface is super helpful because, you know, utilizing this auto mode right here, let's go ahead and make sure this is on the right channel. So that delay, I don't want to hear that, so I'm going to take it off for now, but I want to throw on some delay effects. Now, instead of utilizing that, actually, let's go ahead and use channel 11. There we go. So 11 is the actual one that I'm talking on right now. We don't even need to turn this one on. What I'm going to do is put on delays on my audio interface. The X32 has built-in delays. Super helpful if you don't want any type of feedback. And now let's go ahead and put these delays on. Which channel is it on? All right. So you guys were hearing those delays there. And what I'm going to do is take this melodica, find out what chords we're playing, and do a part on the melodica. And this is one that I like to name beforehand if I'm tracking something, because it will actually store as melodica versus audio 1, audio 2, right? So rename melodica 01. Okay, we're going to go Command L and loop this area. Let's make sure we are just recording this channel. And what key are we in? This is my little test. Here we go. All right. Okay, so taking off that effect on my audio interface. Now notice when I record this, it's super clean, right? And kind of quiet as well. We want to bring that up in volume. Command Tab to get over here and bring that volume up. Okay. Okay, so one cool thing about recording it clean like this is that now you have the ability to really have the effects that you want inside this area here. So let's go ahead and put a delay on. Delay. Delays and loops. Clean delay. Vintage delay. Let's do this one, clean delay. All right, so this is synced, right? 3-3-3. We're gonna, or it's actually not synced, but we're gonna change it to 3-4. Bring our feedback down to about 20%. Our filter effect kind of mid-range. And let's try this out. More feedback. And something else that I want to put in here is just my basic channel of racks, I guess. I have a rack here, and I think I have my vocal rack is probably the most advanced because I just do it all the time. Or my guitar rack actually could be kind of nice too. Let's do vocal rack. So you can throw that right in at the end here. All right, we can kind of see our frequencies of what's happening here. Not too much happening in the upper and higher. Now I actually want this delay to come after my EQ because I'm cutting out some frequencies that I just don't want to hear at all. Ooh, we have a lot on here. Now we also have this effect here that I really like, fade to gray. All right, let's go ahead and listen to that now. Now our gain staging, right? We can actually bring up our gain if we want, just by utilizing this. That's kind of a weak one. We can go ahead and just copy this and put it in over here. All right, so we just added in our melodica right there to kind of fill that sound out a little bit. It still needs some mixing and it needs a lot more love and care, but in the process of creating the song, I was able to show you guys a few things today, specifically talking about tracking using your audio interface playback and effects to save on your CPU usage, and real instruments versus MIDI instruments and how much CPU usage you're using. And there's a lot of tips like this at the the Garnish Network. So check that out. Check our curriculum out. Go to sf.garnishmusicproduction.com. go to the Garnish Music Network. If you like what you see here, please like and subscribe to what we're doing. We're here every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you guys so much for being with us. My name is Justin Anchetta from SF Garnish and Soul Graffiti Studios. Have a great day.